The Constitution is 7,591 words long. This play is shorter, funnier, and significantly more emotionally devastating. We're very lucky to be joined by two people who are bringing Meadow Brook Theater's production of What the Constitution Means to Me to life, Dani Cochrane and Cheryl Turski. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
We are so excited to talk about the show. This seems like such an important and timely show to talk about. And to start us off, Cheryl, I was kind of hoping, could you jump in and tell us what is going on in the show?
I think at the beginning, you sort of think it's going to be this woman recounting sort of why the Constitution left such a mark on her, especially as a teenager, where she would travel the country giving these speeches about about the Constitution in competitions to win money. But then we see that it was really important to her because it's shed a lot of light into her understanding of her own family history, some of which can be a little bit troubling. And so what kind of starts as this understanding of the Constitution turns into some really personal, heartfelt stories. She does a really lovely job of sort of tying everything together at the end.
With a story such as this, Danny, what drew you to wanting to be a part of the show?
Oh man. I think it's really beautiful. I think it's always beautiful when we can really dive into the details of somebody's life. And sort of what's interesting about this one is because Heidi Schreck wrote it. She wrote it about her own life. She performed it herself. And there's just an extra layer of it being very special to work on when you know that this is someone's story, right? These are her ancestors. These are things that happened to her and her mother and her grandmother and her great great grandmother, and just a lot of the effects of different things in our country and in our constitution and how they've affected women. And so I think that drew me to this play was the history and sort of the tie of just being a woman in this country.
Which again, this is such a timely and important conversation to be having because not to get into too much, but there's always struggles with that, and understanding what a constitution protects and what it doesn't, and specifically with any type of minority and stuff. So this sounds like one of those stories that really there's a lot to connect with
Mhm.
for many people.
Yes.
And so you're both playing Heidi, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cheryl, starting with you, who is Heidi to you? Because it sounds like maybe we're playing different versions or different timelines of Heidi.
Yes, so we see her at 15 and then we see her now and the now is she's a woman in her mid 40s, much like myself. And she does go back and forth between being sort of her teenage self and her current self. The thing that I was really drawn to about Heidi, I saw the tour of it. So it wasn't Heidi playing Heidi at that time, but then also it is on Amazon Prime. So I watched it on Amazon Prime with Heidi. And I think the thing that I was really drawn to her specifically was she was this like unbelievably charismatic and very funny and sort of just really warm and but talking about these really difficult things. And I thought I would love to take a stab at that as an actor. The character herself, I do think we see her kind of bounce back and forth between being this somewhat idealist young person and then grappling with the realities of adulthood. And you get to see those two sides of her, which is really fun.
So for you, how do you develop, or like, what is your process for developing a character such as this one?
Oof. Um, Again, not to sort of harp on it too much, but I remember thinking the show will only work if the audience like loves this woman,
Sure.
because she's delivering such difficult information a lot of the show.
Mhm.
And it's only going to work if you really lean into the moments of humor as well. And
Sure.
I sort of started there. And then the other thing that's interesting about this show is there's quite a few facts or kind of true narratives or true stories that she delivers. And so on the one hand, you have to play this lovable character who's charming the audience, who's making light of some difficult things in order to draw you in. And then when you deliver the really heavy hitting information, you also kind of have to just say the statistic or say the fact and let the audience have their own response to it. And that's interesting, right? Because a lot of stuff she's putting her own spin on, but then there's other stuff that if you put a spin on it, then the audience doesn't get to have their experience with it. And being able to go between those two we would like mark it in the script like, oh, this is a moment where we're not like a newscaster, but we're like delivering a fact.
Mhm.
Or this is a part where it's a beautiful idiosyncratic story so that you can handle both of those kinds of pieces of information. Dani, what did you do?
I agree. I think approaching her, I think you always sort of approach from the thing that you most relate to is and build outwardly. And I agree that I think the humor is something that I relate to. I think that in theater and life, that's sort of how I tend to communicate with people and really get a point across. And so I love the ebb and flow of, sort of, dropping some really heavy hitting things and then with a little, joke or a little this, and it just keeps it lighter. It keeps it more human. It keeps it as something that people sitting in the audience can relate to, and also still maintain hope or things like that, because there's a lot of heavy hitting things, and it can get very easy to be like, oh man, this is just a lot, and I think that presence of humor and that presence of hope is really what carries the story and makes it really relevant.
As a psychologist, we have to deliver truth sometimes, and sometimes it is just stating a fact and letting it sit there, and then sometimes it is adding a little bit of humor to help kind of swallow that pill. So it sounds like, in a way, this is both like it's therapeutic in a way as well for both the people on stage and the audience as you're kind of going through what's the impact of both Heidi's story, but also what does this mean on a grander scale.
I can only imagine it was very therapeutic for her to write, especially because it is such a close examination of her life and sort of really starting to examine what she felt as 15 and then applying all of those things now as an adult to the experiences that she's had or heard about and pulling that apart. And so I have to imagine it was probably very therapeutic, especially for her
Yeah.
to do
Right.
on stage and examine her whole life in such a vulnerable way. I That's admirable.
Yeah, that I mean, what a you used the word vulnerable. You're right. Like that's scary to almost put yourself out on stage like that for everybody to see, but also cathartic, probably.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of we have big feelings every time we do the show, but it's good. It's like a really, it's out of empathy for this person and her experience. And so there is something really fulfilling about that, even if, there'd be crying, you know what I mean? There'd be some
Sure,
crying.
for sure. Um, so while you're kind of telling, a Heidi Schreck's personal story, but you're also actors and real people behind this as well. So, Cheryl, how do you feel like you balance honoring Heidi's personal story with also bringing your own truth to the role?
What a great and difficult question.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Look, it's like it's
Uh,
great. And it's also I'm also a professor and my students ask me stuff like this and sometimes I'm like, you know.
sure.
Um I do think it's sort of really trying to honor her intentions with the words and that sort of thing, but without putting too much of a mask on it, if that makes sense. So,
Mhm.
um, uh, finding Dani had said this, but like finding your own way in, or like, what do you relate to about this, and how can I hold on to that, and understand that her story is actually not my story. But um, I also think sometimes like even when we're playing characters, it is us on stage, right? And so just allowing the words to influence who we are as people on stage. And I think for me, it's just really important to then like let it go because it's a lot
Okay.
of it's hard, right? So it's like at the end of rehearsal, I've been like watching, Great British Bake Off. Like it's like I'm not getting further into it other than running lines to be like, yes, I just dove into this person and her experience, and now Cheryl is going to have some hot cocoa and not. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't know if that was even really.
Separate and decompress.
Sorry, what? What did you
Separate and decompress.
Yes, exactly. I thought you said meet the press, and I was like, that seems harder to
No, absolutely. I would not, as well as me being here as press, I wouldn't push that on anybody. Dani, how is that balance for you? Like, how do you find the balance between the story of Heidi and also bringing your truth to it?
I kind of agree with Cheryl. I feel like no matter what you're doing, you're bringing yourself to something. And so I think as long as you are really listening to the message, what are we trying to get across to people, and you're honoring that, there's always going to be a mix of you and that character. And that's actually, I think, what is really lovely about it, because you could see this show, 10 two different times.
times.
And it's gonna be Heidi, but it's also going to be a little different, right? Like there's going to be these really beautiful, rich experiences that each person brings to it, right? Like different things in this script hit Cheryl and I differently. Or there are moments where, something really strikes me and is emotional for me that maybe isn't in that moment to Cheryl, and vice versa. And so we bring, our own experience and our own life, to it, which is what I think is really cool, especially about this production, that people will be able to see that ideally people will come 2 times, especially because there is just so much information. I would want to see this twice purely for like, wow, that was a lot of things, and now I want to watch it again and hear more and absorb more. So yeah, I think you're always a little bit yourself. So the balance is just honoring the work. The work-life balances, I agree, being able to put it away. If it's something heavy, being able to put it away, staying off social media, if you need to, and yeah.
Because really, truly, like when you're there, you want to be present with the story, but the story shouldn't be completely enveloping your life
No.
in a way that it can almost become consuming. So, Dani, what part of the play do you feel is so different now compared to maybe earlier rehearsals? Like, what part feels like it's maybe changed and adapted?
I think that there is a lot that's different from the beginning of rehearsal, purely just with the weight of the world. And
Sure.
so that in and of itself is sort of different as every day, we move forward. And I think, and then there's just things that are different. Some fun stuff, right? Where you would get into it at first, and now that we know her and we know these stories and we can tell these stories, and they're starting to get more fun and more physical, and you're embodying this. So I think it's a little heavier, and it's way more fun from the beginning. Yeah.
Probably has become more emotionally connected to the character as well.
Yes, I do feel like we find ourselves getting a little more emotional than we would have day 1, day 5, because these people become people for you too, right? You're telling a story about her mom, but it's your mom, right? And so there's a lot of connection that you're just constantly, knitting together. And so yeah, it does get more emotional because it feels so real.
Absolutely. And Cheryl, is it a similar process for you as well, like from early rehearsals to how it feels now?
I think, and just to piggyback off what Dani said, but um, it was difficult for me to understand the arc of it until we started doing runs. And so
Okay.
now I feel like the journey is way more clear, now that we're sort of more in doing longer, well, we're doing runs, but even doing longer stretches of it. Um, I've never done, it's not a one woman show, but it's largely this one person. I've never done anything. There are so many words. There are so many words. And like just being comfortable with the words took a long time. And so like being comfortable with the words and then finding this arc has just started to happen. And it's really, for me, changed like what is happening with me on stage, having both of those things more strongly in place.
I agree.
That really makes total sense. With this play blending debate, memoir, performance, what has kind of been the biggest challenge to this, like to this production that maybe that you haven't experienced other productions? And Danny, I'll start with you. What has been the challenge of this kind of hybrid form of storytelling?
I think being able to hop in and out of that, right? So, like we said, there's
Sure.
going to be times where it's a monologue, but then there's times where you have to switch your intentions to delivering facts. And then we get into a debate, and now I got to debate somebody, right? Like I have to have those skills. I think, particularly, I mean, this show, words, we are both very seasoned actors, and I don't think I've ever had this like it is so much words because it's also dates and facts and court cases and things like that. So that is different for a show. For this production, what's different is obviously having two of us, but I think that's been a perk, because you have another person in the room to bounce ideas off of, to watch work. Oh, that's great. I'm going to steal that. Great. And you're going to steal that. Like just things that it just broadens the collaborative nature of what we're doing. And that's different because that's
Oh,
not usually the case in a show. You're not going in and you're like, I'm this part and so are you. Like that's just not something I've ever gotten to experience. And so I think it's been really beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it's been so much fun. And I when they were coming to us to do the show, one of the questions was like, "How do you feel about sharing the role?" And I was like, "Great, I feel great about it." And
Yeah.
because I think, well, one, it's amazing to be able to watch someone do it, and again, like learn a lot from watching somebody else do it. It's also such a gift to like burden isn't the right word. It's a huge responsibility. Like this play is such a huge responsibility. It's so great to share it. It's so great to have someone you can talk to about it,
Yes.
and so that it's not you don't feel alone. Is it's not that you feel alone, but you're just like I can say like, oh my gosh, did you look these what is this line?
Yes.
Like what do you think about that? And having another person to bounce that off of is really great.
I mean, that makes total sense because then you're not so alone in that role, like, so I am not an actor, but I assume that most time when you're in a role, you're kind of isolated in that role, like you're living and breathing that person, but now you have somebody else there to kind of also live and breathe that and get to talk to about that.
Mhm.
And also like actor etiquette. Typically, if you're in a big ensemble play, like you're not talking to somebody else so much about your part, right? And if somebody came up to
Sure.
you and give you like another actor gave you a note about what you were doing, that would be a thing. But this is different, right? This is like hey, like I was gonna try moving this way here, like, and I was like, oh no, yeah, that's great, and like that's really fun, and that's an experience that I haven't had before, and also we've known each other for a long time, so like that's great. Um, I mean, could you imagine if we didn't like each other? Or hear me out. It'd be maybe the show would be like, oh my gosh, there's so much conflict. But no, we really like each other. So like that's been a joy.
Yeah.
It could change at any time. We could get in a fight at any time. We're not.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. No. But what's cool about that though too is that it's not like then you with knowing each other, it is more of collaboratively
Yeah.
consistent. Like I guess like you're bringing consistency, like no matter who is coming to what show, even though it's a different interpretation, it's still the same show. Like that. That's probably a really bad way of saying it.
No, that's perfect. Yes.
No, and it's fun to like because Cheryl's hysterical. I hope I'm very funny too, but we're funny in different
Different.
ways. And so it's really fun to watch her pull humor out of stuff. I'm like, oh, I can't land that joke. You know what I mean? Like it's really fun to see those different ways and the different connections that we're making. And I think that'll be fun for the audience too.
Yeah.
To see like these different moments highlighted. So like you said, while it's the same show, because it's still the same show, it's not so completely different, but it is. which is just really cool.
The thing I noticed the most is our different. We have different kinds of humor.
Yeah.
And I would say like Dani's is intellectual and very sharp, right? And like has a lot of almost like analysis behind it or something. And I'm like more like a Muppet. Like
you're gonna have to elaborate on that.
like Muppets or you like smart people? Can't have both. Can't have both.
But Muppets can be smart. I mean, Kermit's got some great life advice.
Are they?
They could be. I think Kermit the Frog was very smart.
I'm not doing Kermit, and I think we know that.
I mean, you just said Muppet. You didn't specify which one.
True.
That's true.
Everyone's correct.
That's true.
Everyone's correct.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think the other because it's such a female it's been nice to have another woman. I mean, we have a young debater. She's not in rehearsal 100% of the time, obviously, because we wouldn't do that and make her sit there and listen to us talk all that time. So she comes in to do the debates, and then poor Tim, he's our he's our legionnaire who sits on stage with us, and he is just sort of, it's lovely to have him there during the play because it's another person. But as far as like the conversations in the room about some of this stuff, he's like, I don't like, obviously he has opinions and he's very smart, but he's like, I'm gonna like take a seat, right? Like, and let you and so it's been nice purely to have another woman to talk about a lot of this with as well, because that wouldn't, like you said, with being sort of alone in a role like this, I feel like that would have been harder to not have, that kind of person to bounce things off of and have some of the heavier conversations with. And so I think that's really nice.
Absolutely. So then just one final question for both of you. And Dan, I'll start with you. It's just, what are you hoping audiences take away from this production of What the Constitution Means to Me?
Frankly, I'm actually, mine's sort of a I hope they come. I think that the title can be, have a lot of connotations to it, right? And I think that what's more important is that it's this woman and her life and how has it affected her. I think it feels very political. It feels very, but inherently to me, that's not what the story is. The story is about loss and love and hope and sort of the way we change as how we look at things when we're young and when we're older. And so my hope is actually sort of a pre-hope. I hope it can get people in the seats to give it a chance who might have been like, oh, I don't know, it might be too political or too heavy for me, and then that they walk out with changed minds, like, wow, I'm really glad I saw that. I'm really glad I gave it a chance when maybe I wouldn't have.
That's a beautiful answer. Cheryl, how about for you?
I like to think about things. And I think I hope that this kind of just makes people kind of think about things a little differently, right? And also just to encourage folks to come. Like, yes, it is about the Constitution, and yes, it is has some sort of darker stories to it. But just remember, I just talked about being a Muppet in the show, so there is humor to be mined. Even in the darkness of tragedy. So it's not all gloom and doom. But yeah, just like thinking about things that you don't have to accept the status quo, but that there might be something else happening or something else that is worth considering.
There's also just a lot, even frankly, I didn't know. There's things we say in that I was like, I didn't know this.
I know we sound really smart, like we knew it before we said it. We didn't. We didn't know before.
But that's the part of selling it. You just make it look like you did.
100%.
Well, thank you so much for the two of you being here and chatting with me today. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
So What the Constitution Means to Me runs at Meadow Brook Theatre February 11th through March 8th. So get your tickets now and we'll see you there.